Oh my goodness gracious, what a discussion that we have ourselves. How's it going, everybody? How's it going, Mets fans? First chiming in live on our replay. It's Wardy here, and we have a breaking news segment to get into right here, right now. Not only did the Mets just re-sign Jesse Winker to a one-year contract at $7 million, which could push it to north of $9 million with some bonuses, but we also find out at the exact same time, per Andy Martino of SNY, that the Mets feel that the most likely scenario is that they are not bringing back Pete Alonso this offseason, that he is in fact signing elsewhere. I'm honestly shocked to hear this, to the credibility of Andy, because I know that Martino is going to have his way to put this out there, that it is going to hold true to a degree. Now, do I think that Alonso is completely out of the realm of possibility? It's hard to gauge that right now, given the fact of where we're at the offseason and the fact that reportedly through the New York Post, among others, over the past day, leading into the reports of The Athletic today, which stated that the Toronto Blue Jays, among other teams, are actively involved in Alonso's market. We come to find out that the Mets and Alonso are still at a financial gap, a significant one at that, even at short-term high AAV. So much so that clearly the Mets and Stearns and everybody in company value Alonso in a way that he simply is not valuing himself in the market. And we have now reached a point in this offseason, everybody, where Pete Alonso may very well find himself landing elsewhere. It goes without saying, folks, the Mets are officially out in the Pete Alonso sweepstakes. Unless we find out later today or in the coming days that the Alonso does still circle back to the Mets, that becomes more likely because he realizes that the market is still more in his favor. I have preached to you guys over the past couple days how much it would be beyond surprising me. And no, it's not at all humbling to me, Nathan, because I've been humbled plenty about thinking that Yoshinobu Yamamoto is going to be a Met or this guy's going to come here. No, if you've been following the platform, which you do, yet you simply act like you don't sometimes, you know exactly how I feel when it comes to these things. And I have no problem saying, wow, I'm surprised to hear this, because I am, absolutely. There is no realm in my right mind as a Mets fan that I could look at this situation. And folks, we're going to comfortably break down the Jesse Winker sweepstakes in a second here, how the Mets signed him, what they brought him back on, the dollars obviously, but everything that you're getting in Jesse Winker, that is what we're going to initially react to. And I want to see your further reactions in the live show and in my comments to my replay viewers would be greatly appreciate that. But we have a lot to get into, and I unfortunately don't have time on my side today. I'm only going to be in the show probably for north of a half hour or so, but we will probably be live later again today, barring changes or a different video that'll come out, because this was by no means in the right with my schedule at the moment. But I'm gonna also screenshot any donations I'm actively getting. Thank you guys so much for them. I can't answer them right away because I got a lot that I need to say on this first, and it begins with the following. Mets bringing back Jesse Winker is awesome. I'm very happy about that. That felt like a foregone conclusion after missing out on what we saw in Jock Pearson, a upgraded version for that platoon lefty bat DH/corner outfield, more DH than anything for Jock. Teoscar Hernandez, you miss out there after obviously he signs a 3-year deal that we see with the LA Dodgers, and we know that they've chimed in on other bats as well. But the fact that they bring back Jesse Winker is what fortifies their outfield. It fortifies that they're likely going to head into the 2025 season and a platoon DH with Jesse Winker and Starling Marte. It also means that when you evaluate what is next for the Mets, we have heard internally through reports over the past 48 hours that the Mets would consider their in-house options and shifting Mark Vientos to first base, giving guys like Brett Beatty, Roddy Mauricio to a lesser degree, to a higher degree, Luis Angel Acuna, among others, opportunity in that infield, especially the hot corner if you have more defensive stability. The Mets are willing to do that, and it appears that they are beyond willing to roll into the season without Pete Alonso. But the big question is, are they really willing to roll into the season without Pete Alonso while also not making another offensive acquisition? That is what I do not foresee to be the case whatsoever in this one. I will be very surprised, truthfully, and I know I've been surprised already with the fact that Alonso is on the outside looking in now to even return to the Mets this offseason, which is crazy to say, yeah, here we are. You do have to wonder, to what degree does Vladimir Guerrero Jr. play into this? And the reason why we talk about Vladdy, at least briefly, has more to do with the fact of what we've heard over the past couple days. Not only the Mets chiming in and checking in on Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but to find out that the Toronto Blue Jays are one of the top suitors right now, yet again, for Pete Alonso, as they are so desperate to make moves. They would love to pair Vladdy and Alonso together, obviously, but it also makes Vladdy far more expendable should it happen. A fantastic read that came out earlier today from the Athletics, Will Salmon and Ken Rosenthal. Will, who's a great friend here on the platform, highly implore you guys to check out his work in case you guys haven't already. Vladdy, but they went on to note that not only is there a financial gap, still a significant one between the Mets and Alonso, but they also know that the Mets have their hard line to stand on getting a deal done by because they're in active negotiation with other players. So the big question is now, after signing Jesse Winker, you know that Anthony Santander is essentially not going to happen, right? There really isn't a realm where I think Anthony Santander would make sense for this Mets team now after what they just log-jammed at the DH position. Unless they trade Starling Marte and Winker is more in that platoon-type corner outfield and is truly more in that fourth outfield type where he's coming off the bench more often than not, with Santander being the predominant DH. That, again, still makes little sense as to why you'd bring Jesse back then, in my opinion, but you can never have enough outfielders. That is also true. I don't see how Santander is more likely. I could be wrong here, but for a guy that fits mainly that DH position in the corner outfield, it makes a lot less sense after acquiring Jesse Winker now. A guy that makes a lot more sense, I think you could rightfully say, should Alonso now appear to be walking, if we're going to add a short-term impact bat in the free agent market, go out and get Alex Bregman, sign him to that short-term high AV contract with opt-outs, put him at the hot corner, shift Mark Vientos to first base, and hope that Vientos can give you similar power production to what you got from Alonso this past year as your stopgap option until you go all in on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. next offseason, should you not do it, say, at the trade deadline. Now, do I think Vladdy's going to get traded right now? No, absolutely not. But the Toronto Blue Jays go big, you-know-what, swinging out here, and they sign Mr. Pete Alonso to a fairly mid to long-term deal to potentially pair him with Vladdy. That's only going to last so long before they may become expendable, that being in Vladdy, should they still be sellers by the trade deadline. And yes, it is very hard to fathom a reality of Pete Alonso not being in this Mets lineup with them not having a proper slugger to replace him. That is what is always going to be unsettling for me, if this is in fact true, that the Mets are in fact now going to be done with Alonso, and that be that. With the gap in talks remaining, Mets are looking more seriously at other options, and a return for Pete Alonso seems much less likely now. That is correct, everybody, and I'm going to highlight more on the Alonso front on these sweepstakes in my Bleacher Report segment that'll be live right around 4 p.m. Eastern, so make sure you guys are chiming into that segment later on today in the Bleacher Report app. Just go to MLB News and Rumors or the Mets segment, and you guys will see me there. 4 p.m. Eastern sharp. We'll be breaking it down for you further. Juan Diaz, great member of 47 months. Wardy, Pete overplayed his hand. It's on. Oh, it absolutely is on him. There is no one to blame but Pete Alonso in this current situation as to how he got here. Alonso denied the Mets north of $160 million extension from Billy Epler at the 2023 trade deadline. He not only regrets denying that, but the fact that Alonso may find himself signing a short-term high AV deal with a team not named the Mets is so fascinating to me, because I just don't see a world at all for Alonso and what is best for him, how it would make sense for him to go to a different change of scenery on a short-term level to then bank on yourself again and hope that you don't have the little jitters that you had from Scott Boras in the 162, and it didn't take until Devin Williams tipped that pitch to you right away in the not in the World Baseball Classic, in the wild card in Game 3 to finally snap him straight into getting that clutchness back and being that go-to guy for the Mets. We saw Alonso not be able to handle the expectations, which came with the pressure of being in a walk year. Why is there belief that Alonso could handle this in a circumstance where he's in a foreign territory, where he's in Toronto for potentially a one and done, where he's maybe in Boston, San Francisco, Anaheim with the Angels, what have you? It just, for what Alonso has exemplified so far in his career and what we know Alonso to be, everything has led us to this point in saying, yeah, it makes a hell of a lot more sense for Alonso to come back to the Mets than anything else. Yet here we are, January 16th, right around 2 p.m. Eastern, talking about how Pete Alonso coming to the Mets is now not a foregone conclusion. It is not inevitable the way that I felt it kind of was with Juan Soto, and now it feels like something that would be honestly lucky and fortunate to happen for fans that want to see Alonso return. It does not appear like it's going to be the case at this point in time. It is absolutely insane that we are here in this reality. Trudeau, great member, 6 months. Vladdy, Breg, Acuna, Lindor, Enfield, it would be absolutely insane. Don't get me wrong. Let's see what my man Michael Marino has to say on X about this, folks. We're going to get into the Jesse Winker signing then, talk a bit more on that, his immediate impact, the upside in that, and then we'll get a lot more into the Alonso stuff, because not that we're not happy to have Jesse Winker back, because I know a lot of fans are very happy to have Winker back, like myself, but no one is, I think this is just a lot to handle in a very short period of time, right? That's all I got to say about that. But Michael Marino on X states, buzz began growing early yesterday that a divorce between Alonso and the Mets was more probable than people initially thought. Today, they began acting as if he is no longer returning. This is Steve Cohen, love Alonso, but they value him in their way. And the way that they value Alonso is in very similar fashion to how the entire league views him. And it's going to take an overpay from a team desperate, the way that the Mets aren't. And I know fans aren't going to love to hear this for the ones that don't like the idea of potentially waiting a little bit longer to make yourself have the best team possible. But there is truth and there is sentiment to the point of, okay, the Mets not wanting to commit at all long-term to Alonso because of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and because of the other opportunities that will inevitably present themselves going forward. So that is what we're going to touch on here in a second. We'll get into the Jesse Winker numbers, everybody. But before I do that, thank you guys so much for smashing that like and subscribe button as your first chime in. It's greatly appreciated, everybody. And if you guys don't know me, how you doing? My name is Tyler Ward. I cover the Mets every single day here on YouTube, and we are the #1 Mets platform, the largest platform covering the Mets since really we started there in December of 2020 when Steve Cohen first became owner, and the Mets made their first official transaction under Cohen, which was signing Trevor May to that multi-year deal. We have been high-flying since then. It's thanks to all you amazing fans. I know that we have donations, and trust me, I'm going to get to all of them as well. And it's absolutely a negotiation tactic that goes without saying as well. That's why the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. stuff has been leaked as of late. Oh, the audio's cutting. Okay. And then it is a lot. But before we talk more on the Jesse Winker signing, Pete Alonso may find himself now out of Queens, which is so crazy to say. I do just want to share a moment on a passing of a fantastic individual, one that directly impacted not only my baseball fandom, but really in aspiring to be a sportscaster and to be a talking head in the baseball space. And that is none other than the legend himself, and Bob Uecker, who sadly passed away today at the young age of 90. Uecker, who is a baseball lifer, has been a part of the game from literally the time I felt like he could start to at least formulate a sentence up until now. Sadly, the final game he covered, which was him being heartbroken by Pete Alonso on the Mets in the wild card, which really stings that I think about in that sense because I don't wish that for Bob at all. But I'm thinking about Uecker's entire family right now, and Bob Uecker, who first impacted me as a baseball fan, as a young fan watching Major League for the first time. That was my introduction to Bob Uecker, as I know it was the case for some younger baseball fans like myself too. And from that point on, I informed myself a lot on Uecker and how much he has not only been the voice of the Milwaukee Brewers, but just how much he's been a staple at Major League Baseball as a tremendous talking head and one of the best radio voices to do it decade after decade. Oh, the audio's bad. Hold on. Winker. And let's get into this news that the Mets have officially brought him back. Again, Jesse Winker's coming back to the Mets on a 1 year for $7.5 million with a chance to reach $9 million via bonuses. And as we pull up Jesse Winker's numbers, everybody, we'll get into why exactly the Mets are bringing in Winker and ultimately also why there is this active situation going on for better or for worse on the Pete Alonso front. And let's start here with the Jesse Winker news, the positive news, at least for a little bit. Let's talk about Jesse Winker. The Mets bringing back Jesse Winker on a 1 year deal was something that felt inevitable, right? Especially after they lost out on Jock Pearson, after they offered a 2 year deal, but didn't want to go to over $37 million total dollars, which I understood was around 17 mil AAV for a platoon DH, because that's what Jock Pearson is. As talented as he is, as great of a power hitter that he is, Jock Pearson bodes best like Jesse Winker, facing mainly right-handed pitching and is a standalone DH. Doesn't even have any defensive upside in the corners. At least Jesse Winker can be capable because he at least has the physical form to make it happen. Jesse Winker, after being acquired by the Mets last year, was undoubtedly the best trade deadline offensive acquisition that they have made since someone like Javi Baez, if we're going to ignore the thumbs down and just focus on the offensive production. And if we go and look at that being in Yoenis Cespedes literally a decade ago, those are the most impactful recent bats in Mets history trade-wise that they've made, not named Jesse Winker. Jesse's numbers went down after being acquired by the Mets, after having strong numbers with the Washington Nationals as an everyday player, and also hitting that absolute tremendous bomb against Adrian Hauser in that godforsaken 11 a.m. 4th of July game, which still pisses me off myself that I got up to cover. It was so frustrating. But little did we know that Jesse would come here. Jesse, who's always been known for his very extroverted character and personality. You love him or hate him, depending on what fan base you're talking to. But he adopted what it meant to be a Met right away as he came here in this platoon role. Corner DH, along with, corner outfield and DH, facing mainly right-handed pitching. And Jesse Winker was absolutely nails in that platoon role for the Mets down the stretch after the post-trade deadline from August on in 2024. Winker then went on to have a tremendous postseason with the Mets, batting over 300 with a couple home runs that we saw, towering home runs that we saw against the Philadelphia Phillies, among others. Going back in the regular season, his tremendous walk-off opposite field home run against the Baltimore Orioles, the helmet slam, which began the Mets' rally of having a winning, not a winning streak per se, but a winning trip there, then going out west there against the Diamondbacks, against the Padres, and against the White Sox down the stretch there was a key road trip that we all thought was going to be doom and gloom, and Jesse helped pave the way for the Mets to have a positive run on that front when they were performing as well as they did. Jesse Winker then had continued home run heroics for the Mets down the stretch as we then entered postseason play. And hold on to Ramsey. Let me again just pump the brakes for a second. Oh, the Mets have signed Onyx Vega to a minor league deal, catcher. And that's like low and mid-A, like double A. I don't care about that right now. Okay, there's nothing there on that front. Let's see. Okay, Andy Martino just stated that the Mets want to upgrade the glove at third and view Vientos as a third baseman given such a clear picture to what they want to do. That makes no... Okay, so I'm confused as to how that makes sense. But okay, this is what I will say. If the Mets are prioritizing defense at the hot corner, which I have been preaching to every single one of you guys from the start of the offseason, from the first interest that the Mets had that we saw in Willy Adames to shift out of his shortstop position to sign a contract for third base, is the same exact reason why the Mets have been tagged to Alex Bregman. As the same exact reason, guys, are you forgetting what we have relayed over the past number of weeks? If the Mets don't bring in Alonso, Bregman feels like he could be a likelihood where the Mets completely go all in. Bob Nightingale of USA Today reported a couple weeks ago that the Mets are without question the most intriguing team in the Alex Bregman sweepstakes, as everyone throughout the industry firmly believes that if the Mets don't bring in Alonso, they will properly pivot to a guy like Bregman, because Bregman does fit an immediate need, would be an upgrade for them at the hot corner, would be a plus offensive and defensive player at third base, and by shifting Vientos to first base then, if you're willing to do that, and should Mark, God willing, give you 30 plus home runs next season, losing Alonso hurts a whole of a lot less when you view it in that standpoint. So yes, would you be potentially losing the overall power that you get in Alonso and that homegrown talent? Absolutely. But are you at least filling a need that makes sense for the Mets, and honestly something that they may be able to balance better throughout the course of the year and opens the floodgates more for them to land someone like Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? That is what makes it a greater reality happen. And yes, first, that is just you, my man. I'd suggest refreshing the live stream to make that happen on the front of the audio. We had a little bit of hiccup earlier. Bregman is a cheater. You know what, Kevin? He is, but everyone else was, and he's won a championship since without cheating. So I would care more about the Bregman scandal with the Astros if he hasn't proven anything outside the cheating scandal. But he has in many ways, including a very strong year this past year, putting up respectable numbers. And in the case of going back to Jesse Winker for a second, everybody, because I don't want to lose this point here, a main reason why the Mets like Jesse Winker a lot is not only that he adopted what it meant to be a Met, not only that he came into town and absolutely embraced the fan base in ways that a lot of other players simply can't do right away. Again, just smoothly transitioning like he's been here for years, but it's the clutch numbers, everybody. 2 out and runners scoring position, high leverage, late and close, high leverage situations. Every key statistic that you look at for Jesse Winker in his splits last year and the most important at-bats possible, Jesse Winker posted a 300-plus average, a 900 to 1,000 OPS in all these categories. You can go check Baseball Reference yourself. We've referenced this on the platform numerous times over the past couple months, and that's why I've reaffirmed constantly why Jesse Winker is an inevitable fit as long as the Mets reach a point and say, hey, we know that we're not getting Jock Pearson. We know we're not getting Teoscar Hernandez. Jesse feels like the best platoon corner outfield / DH fit that is best for us that we can then pair with Starling Marte, barring changes there at the DH position, and give some reps in the corner outfield when you want to give an off day to, say, maybe a guy like Brandon Nimmo, or when you want to shift someone to center. Not that I think you're going to ever put Nimmo in center again, but who knows how they're going to go about their configuration throughout the entire course of the year. Now, guys, I know we have donations. I will get to them as well, so be on the lookout for that, folks. Hold on one second. Frank, thank you so much for the donation. I will get to them, everybody. And I know some of you guys don't love the idea of Bregman, but the reason why we're going to relay it, and we're probably going to relay more of it later today, if not tomorrow, is simply because of the fact that, yeah, the Mets are active. We are in the hot stove. Things are officially heating up, everybody. And I don't really think I need to drag on more on Jesse Winker returning. I'm very happy to see Jesse Winker return. A lot of you guys are happy to see Jesse Winker return. But anything else that you guys want to hear on Jesse Winker, we've already relayed here on the platform. So that is what, let's see. Now let's talk more on Alonso here. Let's talk more on Pete, and we'll see how this pairs with Bregman, okay? By a show of hands on the live show to all my replay viewers, please drop them in the comments down below with your immediate reactions. How many of you are for or against Alonso walking? With everything appearing the way that it is right now. This is obviously a negotiation tactic. Off topic, Mets legend DJ Stewart just signed a minor league deal with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So I look forward to DJ hitting a tank against us in Pittsburgh in late July or early summer, whatever it's going to be, because those things inevitably happen. But all jokes aside, getting back into Alonso here for a second, everybody. I want to hear from each and every one of you. Where do you guys stand on the front of how things appear to be? Pete Alonso may find himself now out of Queens. Again, it's crazy. I can't believe that we're saying this, but here we are, and it's a tough one for me to stomach, just knowing that this, again, appears to be the case right now. But let me get to some donations while you guys spam the chat your thoughts on this. And as I mentioned, everybody, I'm not going to be too long-winded today. I'll probably be in here another 10 minutes or so, and then I'll probably have to get out of here 10 to 20 tops, just because my schedule has been unbelievably hectic today, and I got Bleacher Report at 4 p.m. So we'll be back in a live stream again later today, talking more on potentially Vladdy and other things, if not a video segment prior. But going back to the first donations today, and we see four against. We have a good split in the chat, which I like a lot. People in the comments down below, let's hear it as well. Thank you guys for continuing to smash that like and subscribe on. Help us get a 500 plus likes to our 1,300 concurrent viewers. Less than half you guys just got to smash that button. It's greatly appreciated. My replay viewers, same applies. Anthony Viola with a $10 donation. Great member, great friend on the channel. Anthony says, I really don't see this being a pivot. Really, what are your thoughts? I've shared them already, Anthony, so I hope that I've answered them to the best of my ability. Thank you so much for that. And might I make clear, the Mets signing Jesse Winker is not the pivot. The pivot is that Andy Martino has reaffirmed that the Mets are pivoting, that they are done waiting for Alonso. They're not going to wait on him to make their offseason moves. So they find a guy that fits their mold, that fits based on WAR and wins above replacement, that based on defensive value, and based on how they're projecting 2025 to go without Alonso. They're just trying to fill that hole, Alonso, where yes, there is no proper replacement to fill a homegrown talent, all the personal attachment that Alonso has to Queens. That is true. But based on the player itself, there are ways that the Mets can get creative here, and that is actively what they are trying to do here, folks. So let's see. Let's hear more words on Andy Martino, as he actually just shared some on X, which I'm going to relay to each and every one of you right here, right now. So give me 1 second, folks. Webb's Love, thank you for the donation. Then we'll get back into touching on the donations here shortly, everybody. Appreciate everyone chiming in live on a replay. Massive day today in Metsland. Massive one. $1,200, thank you so much for the donation as well. I appreciate that. If you guys are first chiming in, the Mets have brought back Jesse Winker on a one-year deal, but I do see that Pete Alonso appears on the outside looking into return to Queens. So let's hear from Andy Martino why that is.
Over the past several days, we've been hearing and reporting that the Mets are getting ready to pivot and move on from Pete Alonso if the sides did not come to an agreement soon. Thursday brought significant movement in this direction, with the agreement with Jesse Winker pending physical and, according to sources, on a deal. Now, Winker's a nice signing. It's a good outfield DH bat, a big part of what the Mets were able to accomplish last year. And the broader context here is that the Mets are now looking at what they expect will be a post-Alonso world. Look, Pete is still a free agent, as far as we know. He does not have an agreement with any other club. But the salient point here is that the Mets now believe that they're not going to bridge that gap. That's highly unlikely that they'll bring Alonso back, and they start to commit those dollars to other players. In addition to Winker, they're still talking to relievers. I believe they're still going to bring in an impact guy, whether that's Tanner Scott, who they've been talking to, or somebody else who's a high-leverage reliever. They could sign a veteran infielder to play around the diamond and supplement that youth movement and the versatility that they already have in-house. But the major point here today is that this could be a big day in the history of the franchise. One of their great offensive players just could not come to terms with the organization. So the Mets now think that Alonso now believe that they're not going to bridge that
Sorry,
gap.
guys. I'm just going back for a second because I got sidetracked looking at the chat, and I want to make sure I don't miss a thing he says here. Zabel, thank you so much for becoming a member, my man. Very happy to have you in here. Thank you so much for joining the community, brother. Zabel Gonzalez, we appreciate you.
That's highly unlikely that they'll bring Alonso back, and they start to commit those dollars to other players. In addition to Winker, they're still talking to relievers. I believe they're still going to bring in an impact guy, whether that's Tanner Scott, who they've been talking to, or somebody else who's a high-leverage reliever. They could sign a veteran infielder to play around the diamond and supplement that youth movement and the versatility that they.
So veteran infielder, obviously, to move around the diamond. You think of Jose Iglesias right away. I think that's an inevitable reunion that will happen that we touched on previously on the platform. I also, again, do not foresee this offseason rounding out the Mets where they don't make a more significant offensive acquisition beyond Jesse Winker now. Now, Juan Soto, we know that already, but I'm saying signing Juan Soto only gets you so far if you lose out on pretty much a luck of a 35 to 40 plus home run bat every single year. But the more that I hear this and the more that Andy's relaying that the Mets appear, that they're on the outside looking in, is a prime negotiation tactic that's really forcing Alonso's hand. I am still holding out a sliver of hope that Pete Alonso will be a Met for 2025. Not necessarily that I just want it to happen, but more so because I still need to see it to believe it if Alonso's going to find himself signing elsewhere, especially if it's short-term high AAV. It just makes such little sense for him, but for all we know, maybe things really have soured here in the negotiation. Things have been that. You know what I mean? And Robert, the audio is fine if you refresh the live stream.
They already have in-house. But the major point here today is that this could be a big day in the history of the franchise. One of their great offensive players just could not come to terms with the organization. So the Mets now think that Alonso will play elsewhere in 2025 and beyond.
Emphasis on the Mets now think Alonso will play elsewhere. There is exact reasoning as to why Martino is wording things the way that he is. This is what we call negotiation. This is a leverage game, everybody. Just like how Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and everything was thrown out in the public eye most recently of him. The reason as to why that was happening, what Vladdy is continuing to, is not because the Mets don't have interest. They do, but we know that Vladdy being traded this offseason is very unlikely at this point in time, reportedly at this point. But if you find yourself in a situation where, hey, you're still at a significant gap financially when it's short-term high AV, like, what are we doing here? We're putting our foot down, Pete. We love you. We'd like you to return, but we're making it known we're going to move past without you. And we're not going to lose sleep over it. And I don't know what Alonso and Boris's approach was up until this point. I'm thinking, calling the bluff like, oh, no, you won't, when we absolutely will. Again, we all love Alonso, but we also shouldn't sit here and act like Alonso is a Juan Soto type where, as the Yankees lost Soto, trying to replace that is so hard to do. So hard to do. However, when it comes to Alonso, you might not be able to replace the actual player, but you can replace aspects to what you're missing in a way that you really can't the same with a guy like Juan Soto. Colin, thank you so much for the $10 donation. I really appreciate that too. Let me get into this because I know we have more donations from earlier. Let me backtrack in just a chat a couple seconds ago here. Let's see. Are the Blue Jays on Pete because they might lose out on keeping Vlad? Pardon me. Are the Blue Jays on Pete because they might lose out on keeping Vladdy to the Mets? Even if it's not fully true, it's a fun topic to talk about. Let's see. I'm sorry. Are the Blue Jays on Pete because they missed? I'm got to reword this one more time. I apologize, everybody. Are the Blue Jays on Pete because they might lose out on Vladdy, and they're trying to lose out on keeping Vladdy to the Mets? Even if it's not fully true, it's a fun topic to talk. This is what I feel right now. if the Blue Jays actually land Vladimir Guerrero Jr., they're doing, pardon me, if the Blue Jays actually land Pete Alonso, they're doing that for the sole purpose of pairing Alonso with Vladdy in the hopes that Vladdy will not walk a year from now and they will hopefully be in a lasting relationship together. But the likelihood of Vladdy not being more expendable and not being with a different roster feels very drastic. It feels like that isn't going to happen. Like, it feels inevitable that Vladdy's going to be leaving Toronto at some point, right? Even if they brought in Alonso. And I think it makes him more expendable in the case of Vladdy. It allows the Blue Jays to stomach a bit more if they lose out on Vladdy, or if they make him more expendable at the trade deadline, per se. If they have Alonso inked to, say, multi-years where there isn't an opt-out after the first year, potentially, maybe Alonso does get 5+ years from the Blue Jays without those opt-outs, you know, where he is really comfortable with the deal that he is on. If that's the case, and they have their first base position locked down for the next number of years with Alonso, then that would be further reason as to why Vladdy could find himself out at some point than anything else. And I'll be completely blunt by saying I would absolutely do a swap of Alonso for Vladdy every day of the week. This is nothing personal against Alonso. This has nothing to do with everything he's done for us Mets fans at this point. I wish him well in his career wherever he's going to land this offseason. But the fact of the matter is as a fan, I care about winning. I've never seen a championship in my lifetime. I've seen my team get close, but to no avail. And I'm also very much interested in acquiring the best players for my team. And if I'm being completely honest, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. checks off every single box in a way that Alonso doesn't for this Mets team, both short and long-term vision, on the right fit, on the power implementation, on the contact, the gap-to-gap, the eye at the plate. There's so many things that I really admire about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that I think would bode well as a consistent long-term first baseman for this Mets team. Is it a slam dunk to happen? No, but it's definitely something to make note of. I think that right there is important, everybody. So on the Alonso front, what we know at this point, it appears the Mets may find themselves out. It doesn't mean that they are going to be done making moves this offseason. No, it doesn't. And I think that is exactly why we should also talk for a couple more minutes here on what is going on with Alex Bregman, because this is very interesting as well, right? We know that Alex Bregman's market right now is the following. The Detroit Tigers really like him. AJ Hinch would love to rekindle that relationship, but the problem is they're at a gap on years, right? Alex Bregman turned down a massive contract from the Toronto Blue Jays reportedly. Far and away the biggest one he's gotten already this offseason. Probably of longer term, closer to what he wants. And he said no to Toronto. Because, again, people don't want to be a Toronto Blue Jay for various reasons. Whatever those reasons may be, depends on the person. When you get into the Boston Red Sox, do they fit the mold, especially if, say, he signed a 2-3-year deal with an opt-out after the first and or second season? Yes. I think the Red Sox make the most sense based on how Fenway can play for Bregman and the Juice's offensive numbers should he hit the free agent market again. But do I also know that the Mets can now throw comfortably a higher AAV, an obnoxious AAV, to Alex Bregman to be our third baseman for 2025 at minimum, comfortably, without a problem? Yes. And the reason why I say that is, guys, look at the numbers. The Mets have so much money off the books. The Mets can ink Alonso, Santander, or Alonso, Bregman, and a key reliever right now without a sweat, without a problem this offseason. But the reason why they're not is for valid reasoning here. And Buster Olney, folks, just reported the following. And again, it is Buster Olney. He is a schmuck. You guys know how I feel about Buster Olney. Buster, when it comes to the Mets, is usually only looking for clicks and has been a notorious Brave and Yankee lover and a Met hater. We have seen this time and time again. I've had back and forth with him on X. You guys know this. But let's relay what Buster Olney just reported or tweeted to see how important it is to some of you guys. And then we'll talk a bit more on Alex Bregman here in a second. But as we see from Buster Olney beside me, folks, in the Mets' perfect world, they love to find a deal for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who, like Juan Soto, is a slugger who makes contact. 199 hits and 96 strikeouts last year. If they pulled off a trade for him, they could sign him before he hit the market, as they did with Francisco Lindor. And then, yes, so pretty much all Buster is saying is exactly what I'm in favor of. I would do, again, ridiculous things to have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Met. And that is what would make losing Alonso sting so much less. There is no better pivot. There is no better replacement than Vladdy. But do I expect Vladdy to happen right now? No. I would love for it to happen. We'll talk more on him plenty this offseason. I'm sure this is just the beginning of much of more to happen. But no, I do not expect us to land him via trade until something or a report gives me a reason to believe otherwise. Tomas Nido signed a minor league deal with the Detroit Tigers. Congratulations, Nido. Nido Kane legend, we love you. But reel back for a second, everybody. We know that the Alex Bregman market has been a fascinating one. And this is one where, even with how things currently stand, it just feels really hard to envision a world where we're really starting 2025 with the Mets having Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, and potentially Alex Bregman, or a different bad option not named Pete Alonso. It's such a hard thing to fathom as a fan, because we've been talking in circles constantly on where things are currently on these sweepstakes, where things stand for the Mets, where things stand for Alonso, where things stand for other suitors going after Alonso, like the Jays and others. But every single conclusion that we reach at this point is it just doesn't make sense for Alonso. Yet here we are. So what does make sense is that the Mets have always been wanting more of an upgrade at the hot corner. And while I'm not opposed to giving Mark Vientos the keys to begin the year there, like he handled well throughout the regular season, just didn't handle well defensively in postseason, that is what was really exposed that we saw when it was crunch time, when it was the biggest timing there. But this is what I just have to say. If the Mets were linked to Willy Adames, if the Mets have been linked to Alex Bregman, I think that this is more of a leverage play. I really do. And Angel, I would just suggest refreshing the live stream, and the audio should be fine for you. If you still have a hiccup for whatever reason, please let me know. We have over 1,400 in the live chat, everybody. Guys, thank you so much for continuing to smash that like and subscribe button. It's greatly appreciated. And before we get on to more on Bregman and more on to what other moves the Mets can make this offseason, should they officially be out on Alonso, let me get into some other donations I didn't get a chance to touch on up until now. And that's first from James Alba. Thank you so much, James. James says the Mets removing themselves from negotiations just further plummets Pete's market. I think this is a last negotiation tactic. I tend to agree with you. I absolutely think that this is a negotiation tactic, and I still will not be shocked if we find out that, yes, the Mets are still bringing back Alonso when everything is said and done. It just doesn't appear at all likely now at this point in time. Frank Cecil with the $2 hollow. Thank you so much. Webb's Love, thank you for the $2 donation. Vientos will outplay Pete over the next 8 years market. I don't necessarily agree with that, Webb's Love. I appreciate the donation. I appreciate the optimism. Let's not forget how much luck Vientos had this past year, because he did actually have a decent amount of luck on the offensive end. That is true. No worries, Angel. Not a problem, my man. Happy to have you in here. But yeah, it's as simple as that. Vientos, I need to see him really build off of what was a tremendous 2024 campaign. Roughly 30 home runs, I think 27 for Mr. 27. Can he now have himself a 35-plus home run season and a normal 162 from the team from start to finish? That's a good question. I think he can get there, but how will the other things look? How will the on-base ability be? How will his contact ability be, right? Those are things that it's going to be a big question this year for Vientos, who proved a lot, but now we had the expectation with Vientos. Now he has to go and meet those expectations. Emerson, happy to have you in here as well. Hope you're doing fantastic, my friend. Let's see here in the chat. We got 1,200 with a $5 holla stating, letting Pete go would be as horrible as when they traded our organization MVP, the great Zappucki. Hopefully they figure it out, or we get Vlad. Yes, again, if we get Vlad, I'd be ecstatic at that idea, obviously, and that one feels like it can become a greater reality as more time is passing. But if the Mets are really out here on Alonso, folks, we have to talk about these pivot plans, right? And thank you so much for that donation, 1,200. Zabel, thank you for the membership as well. Appreciate you. I believe we're all caught up on donos and memberships at this point now, everybody. So let's reel back in, and we talked a bit there on Bregman. You guys know where I stand. For those that don't know on Alex Bregman and a bit on his market, what's most appealing about Alex Bregman, if the Mets brought someone like him in, well, let me relay. I can gladly do that for you guys like I have all offseason long, because it's the following. One, what's very appealing about Alex Bregman is a defensive upside. He was a +9 defensive player per Fangraphs this past season. He posted 26 home runs that we saw, 75-plus RBIs, a 260, 315, 453 clip, a respectable clip for over 4 WAR and a 118 WRC+. This was statistically the best defensive season that Alex Bregman has had, if not in his career, then one of the best since he got his young career started there at the early to mid 2010s. So as we look now at Bregman and why he makes sense, it's because as he's Scott Boras' client, he's finding himself more and more in the category like Alonso, where he's going to have to settle with probably right around a 3-year deal with opt-outs. And if the Mets have a sizable gap still with Alonso in this negotiation, or lack thereof at the moment, who's not to say that they might be able to reach more in the middle with Alonso, not Alonso, but in Bregman, that they do see more upside with. This may pain some Mets fans here, but it's a reality. Alex Bregman brings more to the Mets on pure value of an overall player than Alonso. You can make that argument based on his defensive upside alone, based on his ability where you could move him to second base if you really had to for whatever reason. If, say, McNeil gets traded and the youngsters just don't work out for whatever reason, say one of the kids works better at the hot corner, maybe one of Mauricio or Beatty just really blossoms at third base out of nowhere. I can't see Bregman wanting to shift out third base, obviously. It doesn't make any sense for him, but I'm just spitballing here. I'm just trying to come up with all the reasons. And another thing is the Citi Field numbers. While it is true that if Alex Bregman signed a short-term high EV would opt-out deal with a team like the Boston Red Sox, that probably would be best for him and his offensive implementation based on playing in Fenway for half a season. But what is also true is that if you look at the splits through Baseball Savant, you can go through a offensive player's numbers and see how many home runs that they would have in a 162-game season all in one single ballpark. And when you look throughout every single ballpark and you get to Citi Field, Alex Bregman would have had the same exact numbers that he had with the Astros this past year, both home and away, that he would have had at just Citi Field with 26 home runs and right around the same RBI. So what does that tell you? Well, yes, Citi Field is a pitcher's park by all accounts. It is still a park that's going to give Alex Bregman right around the same exact numbers that he has been steadily, consistently hitting throughout his career. So that benefits the Mets. Then you add in, okay, do you want to add in a Red Sox lineup that's frontlined by Rafi Devers and what we see there in Tristan Casas to a degree, should he not be traded among others? Or do you want to join Juan Soto? Or do you want to join Francisco Lindor? Or do you want to join Brandon Nimmo, Mark Vientos, and all the other key pieces that we have here in Queens? A lineup that is certainly deeper, a team that's deeper, and is on a much greater projection to have a deeper run in 2025 than the Boston Red Sox. Even if they acquired Alex Bregman, I think you can make that rightful argument. That is exactly why I will not be shocked if we hear more on the Bregman market and more on that Mets connection there in the coming days, everybody. Sorry, guys, just had to shoot a text quick because I was supposed to be somewhere that I think I'm in the clear for, so I have a little bit more time on my side. And then, like I said, guys, 4 p.m. Eastern, I will be live in the Bleacher Report app, breaking this down all again, essentially, but not just to Mets fans, but to just MLB-wide fans in general. So you're going to hear Toronto Blue Jays fans in the chat probably having their voiced opinion on the Alonso and Vladdy stuff, but we're also going to talk about everything further with Alonso, where he could potentially land if he's not going with the Mets, and the alternatives for the Mets. Because outside of Alex Bregman, which, again, I absolutely love, let's now take a step back and go back to what Andy Martino did make note today by saying how the Mets are really properly pivoting. Just like how the Yankees pivoted from Soto, but allocated a lot of money in different areas, the Mets now have the comfortability, and they did before, but they do furthermore now, they have the comfortability to go out and spend big on a reliever, especially if they don't bring back Alonso. And the reason, you had a $5 donation at the start of your live. Lebs Love, I answered that if I'm not mistaken, but let me double check to make sure that I'm not wrong. Webb's Love, I answered it earlier. I'm very happy that Alonso's gone. He stupidly turned down $158 million 2023 and clearly cares more about the color green over blue and orange. Bye. Appreciate the donation. And listen, I know that there are fans that are going to have their opinions on that, but you also have to bear in mind, Webb's Love, P didn't really do anything wrong. You know what I mean? Like, this is very normal for a guy of his value to hit the market the way that he did. Unfortunately for him, he banked on himself, he betted on himself, and it didn't work out the way that he hoped. Just like Michael Conforto, where it didn't work out after he denied his 7-year extension with the Mets. Yeah, do you guys remember that? Yeah, Michael Conforto was offered a 7-year extension back in the day with the Mets that you probably have no recollection of and probably don't want to think of. That was back when Stanley Alderson was really handling more of the day-by-day as the acting GM there, paired with Zach Scott in the very early goings of the Steve Cohen regime. And thankfully that didn't happen, obviously, as much as I love Scooter and always will. But guys, let's talk on the reliever market here, because the Mets have a chance. They have a legitimate chance. And the fact that this continues to get reaffirmed should not be understated by Andy Martino and others. And that is a simple reality that the Mets are quite literally big game hunting for relievers. They're in the market for Tanner Scott. They absolutely are in favor of landing someone like Tanner Scott. And I don't blame them for being in favor of landing someone like Tanner Scott, because even though the Mets have been linked to Tim Hill, a very solid southpaw reliever option that we highlighted on the platform in yesterday's live stream, I highly implore you all to check that out in case you guys haven't already. Tim Hill makes a lot of sense for the Mets as a crafty southpaw option that is a soft-tossing lefty. He does not make sense if you have no velocity from a man with a left-handed arm that he's throwing in this bullpen. If Genesis Cabrera is as much of a wild card as he appears to be still as a guy that's competing for a bullpen spot on a spring training invite as your lone lefty option that has any velocity, why in God's name should I sign up for Tim Hill as the NL be-all as a lefty option in this pen? He is the prime fit as a soft tossing fit. I am all in favor of Tim Hill. I want him to come. I want him to be back with Desi Druskull, rekindle that relationship from assistant pitching coach for the Yankees last year, where he posted a 2 ERA across 35 innings and a 1 ERA across 10 innings in the postseason leading up to the World Series. Tim Hill was absolutely nails. Not a strikeout guy, but the best in baseball at getting ground ball outs. He's in the 100th percentile, as you guys can see right down there. But the reason why I'm emphasizing Tim Hill is because, as I said yesterday, I can only stomach a Tim Hill signing if it means the Mets are also going to land someone that gets lefties out a more high quality rate, or a guy that just throws straight gas as a lefty bullpen option. And that's where Tanner Scott comes into play. Yes, he walks everyone and your mother, but that's okay, because when you're striking out guys at a clip of right around an 11K per nine, and you're in the 90th and 100th percentile in every single pitching statistic, I'm going to go on a limb and say that there's good reason as to why a lot of teams like you, and that's exactly why Tanner Scott has valued himself currently at right around north of 20 mil AAV. He wants starter type money. It's stupid, it's ridiculous, but when you posted a 1.75 ERA over 70 games last year, a sub-3 expected ERA, this goes in hand as it was a worthy investment on the short-term end for the best pure setup option that they could ask for. He walked my money. You damn right he did, Mark. He is the best, in my opinion, setup option among lefties, obviously. David Robertson would be a very nice veteran fit as a guy that can still get lefties out at a very high quality rate. Tremendous strikeout rate still as he's entering his age 40 season. That is true. But Tanner Scott's a sexy one. That's why Andy keeps throwing him out there, because the Mets are actively involved in his market. 96th percentile in pitching run value, 95th in fastball run value, 75th in breaking run value, 57th in off-speed run value, 90th in expected ERA, 90th in expected batting average, 91st in fastball velocity, 100th in average exit velocity, 84th in chase percentage, 86th in K percentage, 7th in walk percentage, 92nd in barrel percentage, 99th in hard hit percentage, and 88th in ground ball percentage for a 41% at the extension there as the lefty. We would love Tanner Scott, right? You don't want to give too much of an overpay for someone like him, but at the same time, as long as he doesn't hinder your ability to also make other proper moves, not only for the bullpen, but for the team itself, it's something that we can comfortably stomach as fans if it means that we're landing a high-quality reliever to the degree that Tanner Scott would certainly bring to this Mets team. Now, fans, everybody watching live on a replay, I would love to hear in the comments from each and every one of you guys, which reliever would you most hope that the Mets land this offseason, as they are clearly in the thick of it all as we speak and as we are currently breaking down. Let's see, Connor, thank you so much for the gift, and I appreciate that. My man Connor Long, great member. If you guys don't know Connor, please check him out. Connor does an awesome job on YouTube covering the Jets as well. He's been doing a really good job over there. Connor, please plug your Jets YouTube channel in the chat so people can check you out as well and any other content you're coming out with. Connor, by the time he is my age, he will not only be dominating the New York sports scene, but he's just so ahead. He's been killing it from a very young age. Happy to have you in here. Thank you so much for gifting John Rossi, who's been a longtime member and follower on the platform, a membership again. I'm sure John really appreciates that, as do I. So thank you kindly for that, everybody. But as we continue to break down the latest in Mets land, everybody, again, the Mets have re-signed Jesse Winker. He is back, but in turn, because they have brought back Jesse Winker, that not entirely means that's why they're pivoting, but in essence, they are pivoting, and they are pivoting away from, yes, Pete Alonso. Carlos, thank you so much for the $5 holla. A lot of Scott's walks are by design, and they absolutely are. You know what, Carlos? I'm glad you brought that up. Let's talk about walks by design. Because when I think about walks by design, you know who I think of? I think of Blake Snell. Yeah. Blake Snell, one of the best starters in Major League Baseball when he's healthy, when he's right. Walks everyone and their mother half the time, but that's because, again, he's walking for a reason. He's walking and he's striking out guys. That's pretty much what he's doing. Or even he's going to walk some guys to help induce that ground ball double play. It happens. No backup plan. Here's the thing, though, Mothman. I feel very confident the Mets have had thorough backup plans this entire time when talking about losing out on Alonso. But the difference is that while the Mets have absolutely had backup plans and pivot plans, it doesn't change the fact that those pivots might not be to what your liking is as a fan for what you're perceiving or what you want heading into the regular season. It really depends on what they're going to do here, right? Obviously, if the Mets let Jesse Winker be the last bat that they acquire this offseason, and they don't do anything bigger than, say, bringing back Mr. OMG himself and Jose Iglesias, then I will be just as disappointed as each and every one of you. But if you bring in Alex Bregman, If you somehow, some way bring in Santander, which I think is lesser likely, or now more than ever, I think it's very less likely. But we'll talk about Santander in a second. If you go through the trade route, if you get creative potentially for first base stopgap options, if you don't want to shift Vientos to first potentially, there have been those rumblings of a Yandy Diaz type as well. All my Jets viewers are here right now. Oh, Connor, that's awesome. Well, I'm happy to have you guys in here. But yeah, Connor, again, if you haven't already, make sure you just plug your YouTube channel so people know where they can find you if you haven't done that already in the chat. But Carlos, thank you so much for the $5 donation. You're right. It is by design to a degree, and I'm glad you highlighted that. The same way that we just highlighted Tanner Scott, everybody, same way that I want to highlight another player in a second. But before I do, let me just make sure that I have my bearing straight. I have everything set up exactly how I want them to be at the moment as we're breaking down the latest here. And if you guys haven't already, to our well over 1,000 viewers, please continue smash that like and subscribe on. Like I said, guys, if you could help us get a 500-600 plus likes by the end of the live show, which means simply half you guys just got to hit that like button and subscribe as well. Because once we got, guys, we're just a couple hundred subs away from 31,000. For every new 1,000 subscribers that we hit, and Kevin, no, it's okay, because I'm the one who relayed and told him he could do it. For the next 1,000 subscribers that we hit, because we already hit 30K, and I gave away a Juan Soto jersey. When we hit 31,000 subscribers, we're doing another Mets-related giveaway. So, guys, further incentive to join the community if you haven't already, for your chance to get not only jerseys, baseballs, different things, but also be a part of the largest community that we built here on YouTube over the past 4 years, covering specifically the Mets every single day here on the platform. But to go from Tanner Scott, now let's go from Tanner Scott. And let's talk a little bit more here on why I love Anthony Santander, but how I'm understanding the greater reality, which is Anthony Santander not being a New York Met. Because I feel like if Anthony Santander was going to be a Met, it would mean that the Mets would allow there to have flexibility in that DH position. Can the Mets still put Santander in and have Jesse Winker as their fourth outfielder type, paired with one of Tyrone or Siri, whoever's not playing, and he comes predominantly off the bench? Yes, that is possible. It is not impossible. But you know what I mean? If the Mets are going to go out of their way to bring Jesse back, it feels less and less likely that they're going to sign a guy that profiles best in the DH position when you're planning to platoon that between Winker and Marte now to head into the season with someone like Anthony Santander. And as you guys see from Santander's numbers, not only down below, but also savant numbers beside me, Anthony was in the 79th percentile in batting run value, 13th percentile in base running run value, 25th in fielding run value, 58th in XWOBA, expected batting average 20th, 72nd, you said expected slugging, 62nd in an average exit velocity, 79th in barrel percentage, 60th in hard hit percentage, 60th in sweet spot percentage, 69th in bat speed, 22nd and 16th in the score it up and chase percentages. So down there chasing quite a bit, but he doesn't whiff a lot, interestingly enough. So, this is interesting. Okay, so Santander chased a lot last year, yet his whiff percentage is in the 77th percentile, and his K percentage is well above league average in the 66th percentile. He's also above league average in his walk percentage at 60th percentile, so he does a solid job on getting on base, obviously. Only a 308 on base percentage this past year, but still, getting a good amount of walks when he's out there. Obviously, the chase rate, the chase percentage is down. That's something you can work on a bit, but it's been 3 consecutive seasons for a switch-hitting slugger, a switch-hitting corner outfield DH fit, which is such an anomaly. It's so rare. It's so hard to find. To have 3 consecutive years with at least 28 home runs, that's very impressive, right? Then you add in a 44 home run season and the deepest lineup he's ever been a part of last year. Just bear this in mind for 1 second. If Anthony Santander was in this Mets lineup, you could argue that this would be the deepest lineup that he's been a part of outside of what he went through last year in Baltimore with those O's, right? So much potential there to add another dominant home run hitting switch hitter with Francisco Lindor in this lineup, which will be also lethal. And him being a switch hitter is exactly why you don't need to be relying on Santander to be a platoon DH when he can be your every DH. And the exact reason why I don't see Santander coming here is because until we find out that, the Mets are still actively involved in Santander, they really like that, and they're not going to let Winker and Marte get in the way of them doing something bigger, which is how they should be thinking, in my humble opinion. But if Santander lands elsewhere, it won't shock me because of all the reasons that we just relayed to each and every one of you. I love Anthony Santander. I think he'd be a tremendous fit for DH, but it just feels less likely now if we're really going with that Marte and Winker platoon and so proven otherwise. Just popped in. Some know if I let some know if it was said. Pardon me. Some know if it was said, but David Robertson is waiting. Oh, yeah, we talked about David Robertson. Yep. The Mets are a team that absolutely can consider a David Robertson reunion. That has been floated out there, especially if they don't sign a guy to a multi-year deal on the reliever front, but want a high leverage piece. David Robertson is one of the best veteran high leverage pieces out there. And guys, you see the numbers with me. They're disgustingly good. Over 12 strikeout per 9 to just 3.4 walks per 9, a flat 3 ERA, a 3.2 expected ERA, which means what he can control as a pitcher tells you that David Robertson was that effing good as a 39-year-old last year. The fastball still sits mid-90s. The changeup's gorgeous. Everything about David Robertson is chef's kiss. I've been obsessed with this man since he landed in Queens in 2023. He was our save artist when we didn't expect him to be. He was supposed to be our setup man for Diaz, but with Diaz going down with injury, sadly, that made him right away have to be our closer, and he was nails up until he was traded to Miami. Didn't fare the same in Miami as they fell short there in their little playoff run before they completely absolutely blew everything up there after hiring Peter Bendix and being done with Kim as their GM. But now, as we look at David Robertson, why is he such a sexy fit for the Mets? It's a couple reasons. One, he is an ageless, timeless wonder. He just like a fine wine. The fact that David Robertson is entering his age 40 season, and he's without question the most sexy names you look at when you look at reliever options available in the free agent market, tells you all you need to know. David Robertson is entering his age 40 season and can very well be one of the best relievers in Major League Baseball again, just like he was this past year. He has consistently churned out tremendous campaigns. Robertson's been in the league for north of 20 years now, guys. He has also won championships with the Yankees. He's done it all in the New York market. He knows how to handle New York fan bases. He knows how to handle all this. And as a man from Alabama, Tuscaloosa, as a matter of fact, and Mr. David Robertson, he has embodied what's not only meant to be a New Yorker, but as a Yankee and as a Met. He loved his time with the Mets. He made that abundantly clear how much he enjoyed being here and how much he wasn't like opposed to the idea of potentially being a Met again, which was awesome too. I'd hope that, now that we don't have Buck, but we have everything that's changed since he's been here, that isn't a needle mover for him, because if David Robertson has any interest in coming back to a big market on a one-year deal, he would be undoubtedly a tremendous setup option for us, because he gets lefties out at a ridiculously good rate, just as good as most southpaws in the game today when you look at Tanner Scott, Tim Hill, and other guys that we recently touched on. And you look 86th percentile in pitching run value, 97th in fastball run value, 73rd in off-speed run value. And mind you, Tanner Scott, who throws gas, again sitting 97 to 100, we still got our guy David Robertson here there, sitting 93 to 95 there. Again, very respectable when you look at the fastball velocity. He's still well above league average there, in the 60th, right around in the 60th percentile, as a matter of fact. 73rd percentile in off-speed run value, if I didn't say that already. John, thank you for the donation. The pivot cannot be baited. I take an Arenado trade. The pivot cannot be baited if they don't do anything more offensively. I agree with that. Thank you so much for the donation, John. I love you. Average exit velocity, 53rd percentile. Chase percentage, 15th percentile. Whip percentage, 79th percentile. K percentage, 96th percentile. Chef's kiss. Walk percentage, 29th, but that's okay as long as he's striking out guys at this rate. 85th in barrel percentage, 58th in hard hit percentage, 75th in ground ball percentage, and right around 75th, if not 80th in the percentile in his extension. And to have that much extension at 5'11" is very impressive as well. Got the cutter, the curve, the slide piece, the change, the sinker, all a mix that Desi Drusko would work well with, and I'm sure Jeremy Hafner can once again pair with like he did a couple years ago. And the thing that really stands out to me, in my humble opinion, guys, if I'm being completely honest, is that I want him to be here for what he was supposed to be here for. The Mets signed David Robertson in 2023 to be their setup man. He never got to be their setup man because of Diaz's injury. Now we can finally be what he was supposed to be 2 years ago, fast forward 2 years later. I want that. Tingus Pingus with a $5 donation says, how does Pete and Vlad on the same team work? Both want to field. Don't believe Pete wants a DH role. He doesn't want a DH role at all, but here's the thing. His market has completely shrunk. The Mets are playing hardball, and they're saying, hey, good luck elsewhere, Pete. We'd love to have you back, but you have to come back on our terms, or else good luck in Toronto, good luck in Anaheim, good luck in San Fran, because it sure as shit ain't going to be Flushing Queens with the rate that we're currently going. I don't see Alonso being overly comfortable with DH, but I don't think Alonso's at all happy or comfortable with any of the negotiation right now. I think it's really eating him alive. I think this has not been a fun process for him whatsoever for the most part. So, yes, in theory, they would flip-flop Vladdy and Alonso, first base DH types, potentially giving Vladdy some more reps at third base to maybe increase his overall value as a player should he be traded before he hits the free agent market next offseason. But as we talk about Vladdy as well, everybody, let's hear what Bob Nightingale has to say on the grower front. And this is exactly what I've been reiterating to you guys, so it's not shocking to hear or see. But let me just talk about it one more time. All right, guys, as you guys can see with me to my right, we see Bob Nightingale of USA Today reporting the following, or just tweeting the following, I should say, not necessarily a report, just stating like what he knows and what his knowledge is at this point in time regarding this active situation. Let me get David Robertson's stats out here because we're done talking about D-Rob. Come back to you later, D-Rob. Love you. Let's see. At the Blue Jays signed Pete Alonso, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. could return back to third base while giving the Blue Jays insurance if Guerrero departs as a free agent after the 2025 season. They have no intention of trading Vladdy now. I mean, no shit. Again, why at all would the Blue Jays want to trade Vladdy now? It would not work in their favor whatsoever, and they know that. For the reason as to, okay, if we can't trade Vladdy now, let's try to be unbelievably desperate and sign one of Bregman, Santander, or Alonso. Make a splash that can hopefully have us be competitive enough to push for playoffs this year. Let that be that. And guys, with over 1,000 people in here, we're just over 100 likes away from 500. If you guys could all spam that like button right now, it'd be greatly appreciated. Everyone watching live enjoying our content as we break down the latest in Mets land. Jesse Winker's back. Pete Alonso looks like he may in fact be done in Queens, barring changes right now. And we're getting into the other pivot and alternative options that the Mets have at this point in time. Let's hear it all in the comments down below. To my replay viewers, let us know as well. It's greatly appreciated. Everyone watching live, thank you guys so much for taking the time to spend some of your day, night, evening, whatever this is, or your guy Wardy breaking down the latest in Mets land. But yeah, the Blue Jays obviously are desperate. They're trying to do everything in their that they possibly can right now to get a deal done and to make something work. And that's exactly why I foresee the Blue Jays to land one of the big bats out there. I don't know if it's going to be Alonso. I don't know if it's going to be Santander. I don't think it's going to be Bregman, but who knows, because they've been heavily involved in his market at this point. What I can tell you is that the Mets are far from done making moves. Now it's just a matter of, are they bringing back Alonso because Alonso's market continues to shrink and he comes back home where he knows that there's nowhere else to go, or Alonso signs elsewhere, and then we figure out, okay, are we really sticking in-house for third base, keeping Vientos there? Are we shifting Vientos to first base? Are we going to toy with Beatty and others in that position? Or are we going to add another bat to make this team better than how it currently is constructed and looking for 2025? I think as of now, with how this Mets team currently is, I think they have enough to be a playoff caliber team. Absolutely. Do I think that they're where they want to be? No. They need to add more high leverage to their bullpen. I would still like another rotation piece, even though that appears on the outside looking in, barring changes based on latest reporting, as frustrating as that may be. Then we also look at the offensive end as well. I think the Mets will have enough in their offense. I think the Mets will surprise people in certain ways. I think if you look at the Mets adding Soto, that alone enough, I think is going to be comfortable for them to get where they want in postseason play. But with having an Alonso reunion or a proper pivot plan that helps fit at least some of that power, fill some of that power that you're losing with Alonso, that's setting yourself up greatly versus not doing it at all. So that is where I have my foot down as a fan. If Alonso's walking, so be it. But what I need to see happen is that this Mets team actually properly pivots and doesn't just put themselves complacent, sitting on their hands saying, hey, we're not going to do anything else. So that is what I'll leave you with, everybody. That is going to wrap up our live show for now. Again, it really does mean a lot. Continue to smash a like and subscribe on as you head out here. And thank you guys so much again for spending your day with me. If we have another live show later today, I'll let you guys know if it happens. It won't be until anywhere from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern range, like we typically do in the evenings, because this was really a breaking news segment. But I also could see why I might want this to marinate for a bit and why we really touched on everything. So be on the lookout for more content later today, barring potential changes. If not, we'll certainly be back live tomorrow, or at least have video content out for you. And with any breaking news report or anything of significance, we will cover it here on the platform like we always do on WardyNYM. Check me out in exactly an hour from now, 4 p.m. Eastern. I will be live in the Bleacher Report app, reiterating a lot more on the Alonso, Vladdy front, and everything else happening in the Mets and MLB rumor mill at this point in time. Have a great one, Mets fans.